Hey, hi, hello, friend. So today our guest is Dakarai Larriett. Dakarai is an Alabama native and the son of a U.S. Army veteran and public school teacher, is a thriving entrepreneur and committed community volunteer. His candidacy for the U.S. Senate is driven by the injustice he faced from a false arrest in 2024. Over the past 20 years, he has served in leadership roles on multiple nonprofit boards, gaining a reputation for his servant leadership upon returning to Birmingham in 2021. Actively involved in various volunteer initiatives, he leads an HOA board in downtown Birmingham that represents local families and businesses, showcasing his passion for Alabama's culture and community. Dakarai shared a bit about his history with the judicial system and his book, Don't Flush, before we talked about what sex means to him and how his upbringing as a former Jehovah's Witness has shaped him, as well as how he wants to fight for our queer community as the first openly gay man in the U.S. Senate. We loved getting to have this chat with Dakarai and share our platform with him. We hope you enjoy listening to our conversation as much as we had having it. Welcome to Season 7 of the Queer Consciousness Podcast. I'm Kit Sargent, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Jess Grace Garcia, and my pronouns are they, them. We're just humans wanting to share the lived experience of other humans.
This season, we're talking about all things sex. We want to have deep, heart-led conversations as we unpack what sex means to us and why it's so important to talk about it.
This is a season of unlearning, relearning, and sharing about a topic that is still considered taboo.
Because at the end of the day, we are all spiritual, sexual beings having a human experience, walking each other home. Dakarai Larriett, welcome to Queer Consciousness.
Thank you so much for having me today.
I am really excited for this conversation, mainly because you are the first politician that we have had on the podcast, being able to give them a platform to share things that are very important to not only our community as queer people, but also as the general community as our country. Having people who are fighting for the marginalized, because like you being a part of the queer community, you are fighting for your siblings, you are fighting for your trans siblings, you are fighting for your marginalized siblings. You are being an example of how you want to see this country change. And so I'm very excited to have this conversation and to lend you our platform to say, hey, we support this guy because we understand where he's coming from. We were able to have a conversation with him, and we see that he is absolutely leading from a heart-centered place where he wants to be the change that he wants to see in the world. And when he takes that very seriously, he has our support.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think that especially for you being someone that's in the South, that's representing a state that honestly has a lot of growth that is needed. And there's a lot of people that are being underrepresented there on, I would say, the majority. Yeah. The majority of people in Alabama, from my understanding. My experience with Alabama is kind of like bittersweet. I met my wife, Jana, who is from Alabama, has moved out here to LA. It's her first time ever moving out of state, her first time moving away from her home. And she misses home at least, every other week. It's this feeling of missing home. And so when we have had to visit, though, the bitter part is we've had to visit for funerals and things like that. And I've had my own probably worst trans bathroom experience in the state of Alabama, but also have had some of the most welcoming, beautiful experiences in Birmingham specifically. It's just interesting. Like it's, I think in places where sometimes the politics are super, red and against us, those that are on the marginalized, those that come from lots of intersections, there is so much strength in those communities because we need each other. And so to see that someone who's from our community wants to endure what it takes to get to this position, I'm curious to hear about your path to that decision. And I'm sure you've got it down now. I'm sure you've got a little short version of your story. But before we ask you our main question, I'm just curious about that, about a little bit about your background and how you got to that decision to run.
Well, it's funny because I was pushed by family to go into law, and that's kind of like your typical political path. But I never wanted to do that. I wanted to be a CEO. I wanted to be an executive, and I did that. Started my own businesses and worked my way up the Fortune 500. But I found my passion in serving the community. And when I moved to New York after graduation, I joined the board of the Bronx Community Pride Center,
Mm.
advocating for unhoused and LGBT youth in the South Bronx. I then got into harm reduction, working at the National Harm Reduction Coalition, so fighting the opioid crisis. Came back to Alabama, joined the board of the University of Alabama Alumni Association, specifically the LGBT Alumni Association, and again, fighting for equal access and cost effective access to education. So it's a life of service, it's 20 years of service. But what really was a pivotal moment was my wrongful arrest in 2024. And when I realized just how broken the system was, I realized I couldn't keep advocating from the outside. I needed to get in to a role where I could change the laws federally. And that really is what spawned the campaign, is speaking to Alabamians about my life experience, theirs, and then building a platform that can win.
Absolutely. I love that. That's
Mm.
fantastic. Especially because like knowing that we have someone who has, like, to your point of fighting from the inside rather than fighting from the outside. It's a lot different when you understand firsthand what other people are talking about. Whereas instead of saying, "Yeah, I hear you, I understand, I get it. It's not fair," but then to have legitimately have had a personal experience where it's like, no, this is not fair. I did nothing wrong, and I am paying for something that I didn't do. And to have someone who has had that lived experience to come out on the other side, instead of being bitter and angry about the fact that the system is incredibly broken, you decided to say, I'm going to change the system. And not a lot of people will do that. They would rather stay in their bitterness and their anger rather than taking that emotion and putting it to good use and saying, no, we can fight the system from the inside out and we can change it from the inside out, because obviously changing it from the outside in isn't working.
I also think there's a inherited strength that comes from, like, as someone who's biracial, as someone who identifies as trans. Like, there's for me, there's a genetic almost component of inherited strength when it comes to, as someone who's also built businesses, Dakari, like as someone else who's done this, I often have much more endurance than my, white counterparts, the folks that are partnering with me, even if they have a similar experience of being queer. That's a learned experience. It's not and it might be a longer lived experience, but most of the time it's something they've had to learn to endure, versus someone who has grown up as a marginalized community, someone who comes from multiple intersections. I just feel like there's inherited strength, and I'm sure that that's what part of why um, we obviously need diversity at the table when it comes to these conversations. But part of why you have the strength to just like go like, yeah, I'm okay, I'm
Mm.
doing this.
Oh, for sure. I think a lot about my grandparents and their lived experience through the civil rights movement in Birmingham. So all those images we see in movies, like that was their life. And I even talk about it in my book, Don't Flush. I start the book talking about my own wrongful arrests, but it's interspersed with a lot of flashbacks to the 50s and 60s in Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
And one of the stories that is almost like my own memory now is my grandparents' altercation with the KKK, and just how similar it was to my own wrongful arrest in 2024.
Yep.
For sure.
I was sharing with my wife Jana earlier that I um had watched on my flight back recently from Minneapolis. I'd watched the Alabama Solution. Um and I was a third of the way into that movie. I thought, oh, I'm really glad I'm watching this before our interview with Dakari, because I'm
Yes.
not sure how long. I haven't, unfortunately, haven't read the book yet. I'm more of a listener when it comes to books. I'm better at listening to books. I'm curious, how long were you in of the prison system after you were wrongfully arrested?
It was one night, but the trauma continues. It was so humiliating. Um, the title of the book is called Don't Flush because after being put through about 45 minutes of sobriety tests in the cold, April is basically winter
Yeah.
in Michigan when this particular stop happened. So I was on the drive through Michigan, even though I lived in Alabama. They took me to a hospital in handcuffs. I tested negative for alcohol on the spot. They didn't tell me until I asked. And then they said, well, we still need you to go to the jailhouse and sober up for marijuana. And that test takes 2 weeks, which is ridiculous that they don't have a roadside test for marijuana.
Yeah.
It's accurate because
Right.
when Michigan became a recreational marijuana state, they were getting a lot of false positives from CBD. So I believe they
Wow.
discontinued the roadside test and now they just throw you in jail and say it takes 2 weeks to get the official test back. So imagine if I didn't have the $100 for the bond.
Yeah.
Imagine if, gosh, I couldn't reach anyone because the payphones, the phones that they have set up in the jailhouse are so difficult to use. Imagine I couldn't reach someone to pay the bond for me. So there's so many what ifs. I could have been locked into the system. And I spoke to lawyers after I got out about people who did get stuck in the system for months. And you lose your car, you lose your house, you lose your job.
Mhm.
Yes. So
Oh, and you had an education and an understanding that so many folks I don't have, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't have that understanding of knowing what the next step might be to getting justice, to getting out, to being free. But yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, I've had friends who've intentionally, been protesting and intentionally got arrested, and still it was a traumatic experience, even though they were walking in to it knowing they were going to get arrested. So
Yeah.
to be surprise arrested, I mean, I've had my own, one time experiences of different kinds of traumas, and it's like, yeah, that shit sticks with you, and it can change in some ways. It's like, not to say that you're thankful for an experience, but it's to say, I'm going to take that silver lining. The silver lining of this experience is that I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to apply what I've learned and do make a difference in the world. And the fact that you went back home to do that is I think dope. I think that's really dope. Well, I'm glad we took time to ask about a couple of things. I'm sure you'll share more from your personal experience as we talk about sex, but I just wanted to give our listeners a little bit of an idea of who you are as a human. Um, so I appreciate that. Kit, hit us with
Yes.
the question.
All right. So, Dakari, what does sex mean to you?
oh, if I just go with my first kind of thought, it is an intimate act with another person or yourself.
It's true. This is the ninth person that we've asked this season so far?
Yep.
And the through line that I keep hearing is that there is some form of intimacy as to what the definition of sex is, whether that's intimacy with another person or with yourself, to your point, or intimacy of building a connection. But that is what we have noticed is like the through line is what does sex mean? Because it can be taken a multitude of different ways. It doesn't have to just be the physical act of penetrative sex. There are different types of sex, and for every single person it's very different. And so, like, to unpack your intimacy of a moment, an intimate act with yourself or with someone else, what do you define as intimacy?
Well, that's why I kind of made it more broad because to your point, it's not always penetration. It could be kissing, making out, right? So I think it depends. And it's interesting also that the pleasure from the situation, I think, can vary from, something that is not penetration to that could be more intimate, I would say, frankly. than what we think of as a traditional sex act. So yeah, it's just kind of amorphous, actually.
This is what I like talking, like asking this question to queer people, because I feel like we have spent more time with this question because it's not in the formula that we're handed, you know? It's like wait a second. We had an interview with my friend Tom, who was a musician, and he went into seminary to become a priest, and thought he was just fully asexual until he realized that, like, oh wait,
Oops.
I'm attracted to bears. Like, oh, this is what I'm attracted to. I'm attracted to big men. That's what I'm attracted to. And it took him it took him to his early 20s to realize that that was the kind of man he was attracted to, because he was in wrestling. He was around like fit men all the time,
Oh wow.
and never was really engaging with
Yeah.
men that were of his type.
Oh wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I just think that that's so real for so many of us, because sometimes our type is physical, sometimes our type is emotional, sometimes it's a bit of both, or it's a spiritual energy type. And
Right.
I think I had a hard time coming to my own identity, um as a trans, as like trans non-binary, because I was experiencing what my wife likes to call doobie doo. My wife Erica has been saying this since college, and I took it on, and it's basically, I don't know if I want to do you or be you or both. And I think sometimes people who are on the gender queer spectrum can experience the, I don't know if I want to be you. And that experience of me being like, am I bi, or am I just gay? Like, am I a lesbian? I don't like that word. That feels too like too constricting for me. I was like, I just don't know. And it was the missing component of recognizing that I was non-binary and trans, that there were men that I found hot, sexy, awesome, that I could snuggle but didn't want to have sex with, but had a lot of the qualities physically that I was wanting to embody. And was like, oh, once it clicked. But it impacted the way that I engaged with the world from a sexual perspective, because I just, wasn't there yet. Wasn't ready to engage. What can you tell us a little about your own history with sex?
Yeah. Well, I was a Jehovah's Witness for most of my life.
Okay.
We
Okay.
we were evangelicals.
Yeah.
So I grew up
Okay.
in a cult. I grew up in a cult as well. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, call it what it is. Yeah.
yeah, let's call it what it is.
So that meant no dating unless you were seeking marriage very seriously. And obviously abstinence and all that good stuff. So, uh, no experience, frankly, until I was about 21.
And was that when you were in New York at that point?
That was in college, but I did a lot of study abroad. So I was moving from city to city. So at that point in time, I was in DC, and I had
I'm from
decided to
Baltimore.
leave. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I decided to leave the faith at that point. And I just realized that I couldn't be authentic in that religion. I was not willing to live asexually and to deny being gay.
Yeah.
And then I also did not want to be in a situation where I was excommunicated because someone found out. So I decided to end it there so that I could live a real life.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
I was going to show you my cup, which says, "Your queerness is divine."
Yes, it is.
So I'm still involved. I'm back involved in Christian spaces, but they are extremely affirming Christian spaces, because I am trans, queer, poly. These are all things that are hard in 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 traditionally Christian spaces. But I was also away from the faith for like over 10 years, even though I still kind of identified a bit with I still thought Jesus was decent, but I didn't know enough about him. And I feel like now he would be in my friend group. Like, the Jesus that I have gotten to know because of my understanding of justice, because of how I've been surrounded by incredible people who are doing the work that Jesus was doing during that time. It's like, oh, you remind me of Jesus. Oh, you remind me of who Jesus probably was. And that feels good, you know? But I also don't feel the need to worship in the way that we were taught to worship.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You said 10 years for you. It was almost like 20 for me after leaving the faith. I didn't think that I had a home, a spiritual home. And a friend took me to church. It happened to be United Methodist Church, incredibly affirming. And ironically, that day there was a female pastor, which I had never seen before personally.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And she was saying, we've got to get our pride float ready for the march coming up. And I'm like, wait, hold on. So I was like, from then on, I knew that was my church.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I feel like sometimes people come and they just need that moment
Yeah.
to feel like something healed for them, and it's okay that they've moved on and they don't need to go back, but they're glad that church exists. And I've been told that as a pastor in some spaces. I'm seen as a pastor, and I've been told that, like, yes, Jess, like seeing you lead worship in this way made me feel like it's gonna be okay, but it's not necessarily what I need, and I just needed to see it, and now I'm good, and I'm like, yes, okay, cool, dope, like that's awesome. I want you to. I think everyone should be free, like the reflection of who in my opinion, the reflection of who divine or the universe is all of this diversity. And so that includes diversity of thought and opinions around, who God is or how the universe is formed. All of that is beautiful. And we should be able to listen and learn from each other, and just align with whatever feels good to us, But no, and I think when it comes to sex, if I'm going to bring it back to sex, um, I when I had my first sexual experience at 17, with a girl, I was like, how nothing about this makes me feel guilty or convicted. Like that feeling that I've felt before when I've done something wrong that felt like ethically confusing, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That hurt someone. I shouldn't have done that. That hurt me. Whatever. I didn't feel that when I was engaging in sex. It didn't just feel good from a body perspective. It felt good in my soul, and it felt good to enjoy something, and it felt God given.
Mm.
And I remember in that moment just going like, how is God not in this?
Right.
And that I feel like is almost more challenging to the folks who want to remove us from any possible power or any sort of political leadership, that want us to be powerless. That is more challenging. That we can redefine and see God more for who they are than who they've been limited to, because they're like, their house of cards has fallen down. If they can even slightly accept or support or vote for someone who doesn't look and feel like them, it's, oh no.
Mm. Well, I
Everything.
think the fake outrage is what really is upsetting and demonizing very specific populations that are not equipped to fight back. So the 1% of the population that's trans, for example, that is really something that I've had to deal with here in Alabama, just in this political race. One of my opponents put out some statements about we don't need Charles Barkley playing in the WNBA. And completely out of left field, no one was even talking about that as an issue. So
Also, don't bring Charles Barkley into
Well,
this.
I was like, why is Charles
everyone-
Barkley catching strays?
Listen,
Like, why?
listen, everyone fucking loves Charles Barkley. Okay, so don't come for Charles Barkley. First of all, and also, what a compliment. As someone
Right?
who's trans, Thank you for comparing me to Charles Barkley. Anyway,
Right. But no, this is what we deal with. But at the same
yeah,
time, to bring it back is we literally have a pedophile ring in the White House.
literally.
That's not enough to get an impeachment move.
hmm
So that's what we're dealing with nationwide and here in Alabama.
Well, yeah, and I would say the other thing that we talk about, I think, openly in queer spaces is like, you know, the shame that they experience, the shame that people experience in those spaces where they're supposed to be perfect, where they're supposed to do X, Y, and Z a certain way, and then they don't fit. These like things that maybe could just be like explored consensually, with another adult.
What a concept.
Right.
Like these things that you could maybe communicate openly with someone or a partner about, they turn into dark, nasty things that you then use as power over someone, and then now we have this horrible like existence of so much sexual abuse in so many Christian spaces and Christian nationalist spaces, and they refuse to look at it, and they'd rather say that a drag queen is going to cause you more trauma, or a trans person going into what you think is the wrong bathroom is going to cause you more trauma than a pastor who has too much power,
It's
a president, a whoever.
It's just so prevalent. And the Jehovah's Witnesses had a problem with this. Obviously, we know the Catholic Church. And even in my personal experience, I think there was an elder in the church that was inching towards trying something with me, and I just shut it down so blatantly that it never progressed. But I just saw a lot of suspicious things growing up.
Can I ask you a question in reference to Jehovah's Witness? I haven't met many Black folks that are Jehovah's Witness. Is
Really?
that, yeah, I didn't know that was as, and I met a lot of folks who are Jehovah's Witness in Maryland when I lived out there. It might have also just been where I was located. I wasn't necessarily in the Baltimore city at the time. But yeah, I didn't know that folks of color were super involved in Jehovah's Witness. I did meet some Mexicans out here though that were trying to convert me, and I was like, bro, how'd you get involved with Jehovah's Witness? So I'm just curious.
They're everywhere. They
Oh
are
yeah,
literally everywhere. And I think if you go to a Black neighborhood, you'll find Black Jehovah's Witnesses. You go to a Korean neighborhood, you'll find Korean Jehovah's Witnesses.
yeah. Oh no, there's a lot of Korean Christians out here, but
Yeah.
it's just, yeah. I was like, oh, because I know, at least with Mormons, there's like a history of like deep history of racism from the top down, and so yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, sorry, that was just my own personal question.
Hey, friend, I just wanted to take a few minutes to do a quick breakdown of what we're offering in the Patreon. So, here it is. We have 3 tiers. Our first tier is the $5 community support tier. This tier helps us pay for things like the podcast feed and the Zoom membership so that we can record. You also get access to my episode blog for every guest, where I share my thoughts on our conversation that I didn't get to say in the episode. Once we have 10 patrons at this level, we'll start doing a monthly community hang on Zoom with me and Jess. You also get to watch the video as well as hear the Patreon exclusive chat that we save for after the episode. We'll also shout you out in the episode intro for joining. Our second tier is the $10 producer tier. This is the salary tier. When you sign up for this tier, everything goes straight to Jess to compensate them for the work that they do on the pod. At the end of the episode, you'll also get a special shout out as producer, as well as everything in the $5 tier. And our third tier is the $25 patron tier. How it breaks down is this: $5 for podcasting expenses, $10 for Jess's salary, and the other $10 will go into a community aid fund. That fund will be used for community support of the Patreon community, organizations and nonprofits that support the queer community, or other endeavors that are voted on by the members of the Patreon. We also have all the videos from season 6 in the Patreon, and I did a blog post for all of those episodes as well, so you can go and read those, as well as all the blogs from season 7. We have a bunch more ideas that we'll be posting as we start doing more push goals, so go check it out, and thanks for supporting us. Now, back to the conversation.
Has your family been Jehovah's Witness for a while, or did your parents find it?
Well, we are quite unusual. We started out as Catholics. My grandfather was Catholic in the Deep South, and he picked that up from his first wife. So, not my grandmother, but the wife before my grandmother. Mom left that religion when we were in Germany because my dad was in the army.
Okay.
And that's how we got into the faith for about 20 years.
Oh. Are your parents still in it?
No, thank goodness.
How
So, yeah,
how how do they handle your identity and what you're choosing to do right now politically? Are they affirming of
mm,
your path?
well, when I left the faith, that would have been 20 years ago, like when I was in college, and they were very upset about that. And I remember we had a family call, and my mom said, I suspected it. And my dad said, You're going to get AIDS and die. So that was their response. But that was behind the veil of the religion. So over time, they found their own autonomy and left that religion and became fully accepting.
I love
Awesome.
hearing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always nice when you have people who follow the exception, not the rule. And especially in terms of like you taking on this very important task and path of going up against some of the hardest people to fight against because of the fact that you are outnumbered in all of the ways, being a queer black man in what is going to be the US Senate.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what's shocking? I never ran to, create a new record or anything or something in the history books, but there has never been an openly, I'm going to say openly, gay man
Oh,
in the US
yes.
Senate.
We
That
all
is
know
a
about the what was it, the
the
RNC or whatever?
RNC. Yeah.
And what it does to
Grinder?
Grinder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That.
Tammy Baldwin is openly lesbian, but there's never
Mhm.
been an openly gay man in the US Senate. After 250 years, yeah, it's time.
Absolutely. 100%.
Geez, of all the US Senate, I thought you were just gonna say in Alabama, you're talking about all.
All the US Senate. So people have tried to say, oh, you'll be the first black gay man. I'm like, there has never been a gay man openly gay in the US Senate. So we need a diversity of opinions at all levels of government.
Yes, we do. 100%. Yes, we do.
Yeah. Oh man. How has it been going for you? Are you feeling encouraged? Are you feeling excited? Is this been a good challenge? I'm just curious how you're feeling.
Well, I officially announced April 7th of 25. So we're coming up on the 1 year mark, and it's just pretty crazy. The primary is May 19th, and momentum is building. So we're starting to have billboards up, TV commercials. So yeah, it's starting to feel like very real now, and people are getting excited. I think you're in it, so you're feeling it in a different way from the general public. But now people are like, oh yeah, there is an election coming up in 2 months. So it becomes like this very rapid curve when the media starts reaching out, and I just got invited and qualified for a debate stage on TV. So things like that are starting to happen.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
I just wanted to say I appreciate your openness and your vulnerability, and obviously you kind of created that path by writing the book at first, you know. I think we need more of that. I have such a difficult relationship when it comes to politics. Um Anyone that I'm voting for definitely also has like attributes that I don't support. Um and that's always difficult, you know, because I want us to improve as a nation, but it feels like it's going to take baby steps. And I don't necessarily want to take those baby steps. Of course, like I want to just jump to the qualified person. But that's it. I do think the people that will actually be what I want to see is the kinds of people that are being transparent and are human, you know? Just human,
Yeah.
you know? Is there anyone in the Senate right now that you're excited to maybe, you know, partner up with, like be alongside,
Yeah.
that you're impressed by?
Well, Elizabeth Warren, so she was my favorite for 2016, and I actually met her during the caucuses in Iowa. So I just, again, you mentioned that humanity, and I like that she had a non-traditional path to the Senate. So that was her first elected role, believe it or not.
Wow.
So it's
Whoa.
possible. And that's what I tell people is I've been working from the outside for the last 20 years in advocacy and in business in the Fortune 500 and in my own businesses. So that's legitimate experience. Everyone's path is different to service. And that's what I see it as. It's a form of service. And I like that she holds businesses accountable. And that has been a big part of my campaign, holding our government, holding law enforcement, holding businesses accountable to the people.
Mm, seriously.
We need that, especially now with how many specifically trans bans are coming down and coming out, and how many people are going so hard against our trans siblings for absolutely no reason.
Well, and even on the Democratic side, in California we have Governor Newsom, and it's like it's hard, because like I would probably vote for him, but then he says like transphobic shit, and I'm like, bro, you're killing me. And then he says things against unhoused folks and homeless folks, and I'm like, you're killing me. You're killing me. But also, like, there are things that you're doing that need to be done. And so like I struggle, like I say that. I truly mean it. And I think we're all human, and like you said, I think like we need to be able to grow even when we're in those positions. We need to be able to listen. We need to be able to, and I think the only way we're going to hear other marginalized folks is if we have marginalized folks in that leadership, because
Yep.
it's like, oh, I actually understand you. I actually have been through that. Like I hear you. I truly hear you. I think, as part of how I was encouraged about Mondami, like actually getting into a position, I was just like, oh, I didn't know it was actually going to happen. How did you feel about that? Was that encouraging to see for you as well?
It was. So we've built a really good contingent of DSA people, Democratic Socialists of America, in Alabama and specifically in Mobile. So I started hearing about him from them, and then my connection to New York also.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking. It'd be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, really encouraged me to follow the race. And I love that he just was able to go from, I think, at 1.1% polling or, awareness of his campaign to the clear front runner. And his popularity has only grown since he's been in office. So it was a real inspiration how to build a grassroots campaign and how to engage people. And we've looked at that. We actually recruited some folks from his team for our organizing.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I was also encouraged that, the first I don't know her position. I don't remember the title of her position. It was like the first trans woman, let alone just trans person
Yeah.
in a political office.
Yep.
And I was just like, this is modeling what we need to see,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Ugh.
And New York State has Chanel Lopez, who I work with the Bronx Community Pride Center. So
Mm,
she works for the governor, Kathy Hochul,
okay.
as LGBT liaison. So
Oh, cool.
I think they're mirroring what's happening at the New York State level in the city, and that's amazing.
That
Oh,
is awesome.
that is really cool.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
she's a trans woman.
Very cool.
Mhm.
I love it.
That's something that, like, when, and this is kind of the good bad of being as chronically online as a lot of people are, you tend to niche down your algorithms or whatever information you're getting fed. And yes, you can get really good information about specific topics that you are very interested in. And at the same time, you end up missing things like this because you're not in those types of circles, or you're not interested in those kinds of things, because it's so hard to keep up with literally everything when everything is happening all at once. And it's like, how do you filter what you want to hear versus what you need to hear?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very true. You have to reach out, I think, and open your mind. For example, I force myself to watch Fox News at the gym. So I know I'm going to be on that treadmill for 30 minutes. Let me just turn on Fox News, put the closed captions on, and see that angle, especially
Mhm.
being someone in the South. And I can say they know how to frame issues. They may not get them 100% right, but they get them framed in a way that gets you fired up. And it's important so I can have a dialogue with my uh, constituents, my future constituents.
I've
Sure.
taken a similar approach in the way that I kind of view the church. Like
Hmm.
and I've always been a fan of hearing different perspectives from all different perspectives. And I don't want to even like I was saying with our previous guest, that I don't want to be in a position where all I'm hearing is like a feedback loop of my own thoughts. Um that's not success to me. And so being the fact that you're putting on Fox, the fact that you're learning, I've also realized that my strength from growing up evangelical is that I'm really good at drawing people together. I'm really good at like making connections. One of the things evangelicals do really, really well is they like, even though they're from different denominations, they're connected, they're resourced, they're utilizing each other's strengths. And that's not something that affirming Christians are doing. Like there are different denominations, UMC, there's, Lutherans, there's, Presbyterians that are affirming, and not all of them talk to each other. But it's something that I'm gifted at. And so like I've been bringing people together from different denominations to create um, inclusive spaces for people. And that has been a superpower of mine because I learned it from evangelicals. And I said, okay, this is what I will utilize. And it is helpful to understand how someone thinks so that you can translate as well. Because if we're speaking a language that we've developed with each other, we are hearing it a certain way. And then they hear it, they're going to hear it very differently. The same is true for us. When we hear them speak, we're like, what are they trying? Sometimes I don't actually understand what they're trying to say. And I'm like, oh, you're just repeating what's been said to you. Okay. I want to empathize. I want to understand them. I want to reach out to them.
Mm,
I don't want to demonize them,
mm.
like we've been demonized. Then we're just continuing a, a bad cycle.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I do also think being in the Jehovah's Witness faith for 20 years has taught me so much and how to empathize, how to frame the issues, and know where they're coming from. Yeah, I agree.
Totally. Do you feel that I know some people say like, oh, my queerness is like just a part of who I am. Do you feel that it's like a major part of your identity in your movement? Or do you feel that it's just like a part of your personality
Mm.
um description in your identity? I don't know if I'm explaining that super well, but that's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I would have said when I was coming out in New York City in my 20s, it was a bigger part. But now I'm just like a 44-year-old man, and that happens to be gay and is single, by the way, too. So, so not
Did you
so.
hear that, listeners?
That was not an advertisement. I'm
No,
way too
just
busy.
joking. Can you
But no,
imagine trying
seriously.
to date right now? Oh my
Gosh,
god.
Oh
no.
Lord.
No. But yeah, so there was a point in my life. Yeah, you're going out 3, 4 nights a week, you're going to Pride, and um, you're just learning, and you're like a teenager,
A
basically.
sponge. Yep.
Exactly. Now it's not as big, I would say, but the big umbrella is just how do we create an environment where everyone feels safe and heard and
Mhm.
um, seen
Yeah.
and able to do their very best in life without living in fear and having to be subjected to attacks by political folks who just want a cheap shot.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Whew. That's real right there. It does feel that way. It's like I feel like there are times when the attacks on trans folks feels heavy, and then there are times that I'm just like, you're so removed. Like this is just easy. This is just easy bait for you,
Yeah.
you know? And if you had one connection, one personal connection to someone,
Mhm.
it would change everything for you.
Mhm. Well, it's interesting. So my dad went from saying you're going to get AIDS and die
Mhm.
to on his deathbed, he told me basically that Will and Grace was his favorite TV show. And I'm like, I don't even like Will and Grace. So I was like,
I know,
oh,
right?
okay. So um the visibility is what I learned from that was so critical. That show made gay people visible. It brought them into folks' homes. And I give the example of R&B and soul music and blues and basketball and football brought black people into white homes. So this is what I think we've got to do. We've got to find a way to bring trans people. And I think Drag Race has, kind of walked that
Helped.
line a little bit. It's
Yeah.
helped a lot. While it is, those are drag queens and many of them have become trans, it has really opened that door to people that, oh, this is just 1% of America, no big deal. So that's what I think is the best way, the most reliable way to finally get past this impasse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that percentage has got to be higher. But then again, that's my world.
Well, that's, I guess, well, I think it's like openly gay and openly
Yeah.
trans. Like,
Uh-huh.
there's some people who are like, you know what, I'm not willing to go through everything that I'm going to have to suffer to be who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing that hit me hard was the Kansas thing.
Yeah.
Like,
That's how they use their legislative time. What a waste.
right?
Yeah.
It's a wild thing that overnight people lost their ability to have an ID.
Yeah.
And I, part of my coming out to my mom and dad was basically we had the vote of for gay marriage or against in Maryland. And I basically had a conversation with my mom that had to do with my humanity and civil rights. Like, it was like basically asking her questions that led to the question of, like, do you see me as 100% human?
Mhm.
Do you see me as whole? If you vote against this, then you are voting against my civil rights as 100% human. And it was relating to her being a white woman marrying a Mexican man. Like, your marriage was illegal. Like, like 60 years ago at that time when I was telling her.
Yeah.
It was like it was not that long ago that
Mhm.
their marriage was illegal. Um and I was just like, this is what I'm saying, Mom. Like, if you're gonna use scripture to back you up, like, all this term of unequally yoked was used for so many other things, including justifying slavery,
Yeah.
justifying like all kinds of stuff, Mom. And so now you're just using that to defend your position. And if you believe in civil rights, you voted for freaking Obama. What, like, how can you vote against gay marriage if you think that church and state need to be separate?
Yeah.
You know? It basically showed her own hypocrisy. And somehow I convinced her to change her mind and she voted for gay
Wow.
marriage, which is
Wonderful.
wild. Wild. But that, both my parents have passed now, and I am thankful that, like, I got to have those opportunities to like have those conversations with them and watch them grow. Because for me, it modeled that, like, no matter what I do with my life, I want to be always open to learning. Oh, I did make that mistake, or I did think differently about that, and maybe I should challenge that thought. And I want people like you in leadership, in positions where they're going to hear someone challenge their way of thinking, and it might make them change their mind. I don't want people in leadership that are just indignant and unwilling to hear a thing.
Yes, it is so important.
Because I imagine 20-year-old you had a lot of other different opinions about trans folks that are probably different than 40-year-old you.
I mean, I'm the first to say I was homophobic and I was gay as a
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witness. So people can change, and I see it in the next generation. I look at my nephews and they, as teenagers and middle school and high school, having their first boyfriends, and it's just not even a point of discussion. It's just normal.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
It gives me hope.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me hope. I love seeing like Gen Alpha folks. They don't even, they're not thinking about sexuality. They're not even having a conversation about, maybe they're thinking about gender and their own identity and thinking, I don't even want to talk about it. Like I was, one of my friends, a youngest sibling was 21 and said something along the lines of like, I don't know, I'm indifferent to gender. She, they, he, whatever.
Oh, that's awesome. I love
I
that.
was like, yes, let's keep going in that direction.
For sure. Absolutely.
Well, Dakari, thank you. I'm so glad you've been with us today. We have one final question. That's our like surprise question.
We do.
Am I hearing a fire truck?
Don't worry, it won't be too bad.
It won't be. No, that's so great, though. That's the first time anybody has ever done that. And I
That's
am
funny.
absolutely thrilled. And that's brilliant. I love that so much. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
He's like, and I'm out.
Oh, that's so great. It's so good, though.
Hey, listeners of Queer Consciousness. Clearly, you have excellent taste. So we wanted to introduce ourselves. My name is Elise, they, them.
I'm Carrie, she, they, and together we created our podcast Proudly on Record to give a platform to queer stories as an act of resistance.
We would love to invite you to join our conversations with queer folks exploring the long-term effects of religious trauma, journeys of deconstruction, and the joy that comes from living life as your true, authentic self.
Lately, we've spoken with conversion therapy survivors, explored the sapphic drag queen scene, asked ex-Mormons how they survived without caffeine, and interrogated mental health experts on why. Just why?
So, if you've ever felt entitled to monetary compensation due to your religious trauma, or have ever wanted to waltz with potatoes up and down the produce aisle, have we got a show for you.
You can find Proudly on Record on all streaming platforms.
Now, back to our favorite theys, Jess and Kit.
Knowing what you know now, having lived the life that you have lived, if you could go back to your 21-year-old self and give him one single piece of advice about sex, what would it be?
I wouldn't, because it's the process that matters.
Yeah?
I couldn't. No. No, I wouldn't. That's like cheating.
Which is why we say the very specific if, not when, if. It's an absolute hypothetical question.
Okay. Yes, let me think about it.
Yeah, you got time. You got time.
I would say be more open-minded and explore. And so, for example, since we're all being transparent here, because of my upbringing, where we are not allowed to date until we are seeking marriage, I didn't have dating experience with men or women until I was 21, basically, right? So an adult. So like most people, like I believe sexuality is a spectrum. So it was almost like I had all this pent up demand to date a man, and to be with the man intimately, that I never ever had the chance to explore dating women. But now it would be kind of awkward as a 44-year-old self-identified gay man to be like, hey, woman, would you like to go on a date with me? And she's like, I thought you were gay. Right?
That's fair.
So I kind of wish if I could go back, I would be like, I would have been a little bit more open-minded, and dated women as well. But now I'm on this track and I'm, off on the deep end being gay. So I don't know if I can go back.
I mean, I think a woman in her 40s, possibly bisexual, would be excited by that.
Possibly bisexual, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I do think that, like, especially women do go down that path a lot. I think it would be really hard, I agree, for a gay man, let alone a black gay man, to just make a not a U-turn, but make a left turn if they've been going right. Because that's a big shift.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's hard for people. It's easier to wrap your head around a woman being bi than it is to wrap your head around a man being bi. And that's not true for me. I think all kinds of people are on the spectrum, and more down the center than hard one way or another. But I do think that in the social construct, yeah, you're right. It would be difficult, and it would be hard. But yeah, you know what? I think there are plenty of women that would be willing to be curious with you.
But then there would also be backlash from our community.
I know that's exactly right. Yep.
Right? Like I just, I was on the cover of Advocate, black gay man running for U.S. Senate. Now he's dating a woman. So we sometimes
well,
box ourselves into
we don't have
things.
to jump right into dating.
It's
Dakarai.
true.
Dakarai, we could just, there's ways to do that without dating. Like, goodness, learn from the youths. You learn from the youths of today.
Oh, I'm 44. See, that's the other. Yeah, that's why we have.
I know. I'm 39.
Yeah.
I'm 39. I'm not much. I'm only a little bit younger than you, so I get it. And I also have always been very. Every relationship is like a commitment. It's never been that I can't. I don't know how to hook up. I have no desire or understanding of how to do that, and so I agree. It would end up being like a whole identity shift before I even started like dating. Yeah. But yeah, no, I feel you. And you know what? There's so many beautiful men out there. You got plenty of efficiency, and you're one of them. You're one of them.
True. It is true.
I'm thankful. I'm thankful you came, and thank you for being so vulnerable and honest.
It's a great time.
Amazing. Until next time. This podcast is hosted by me, Kit Sargent, co-hosted and produced by Jess Grace Garcia of Springwood Productions, and the theme music is by Brian Smith of Holy Holy Music Productions. If you could do us a huge favor and please like, follow, comment, share, do all of the things on all of the socials. You can follow the podcast on Instagram @_queer.consciousness for all the latest episodes, as well as any other exciting news. When you're listening on Spotify, please leave a 5-star rating and use the comment box for anything you'd like us to talk about. When you're listening to Apple Podcasts, please leave a comment and a 5-star rating. If you'd like to be on the podcast, send a message to queerconsciousnesspod@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/queerconsciousnesspodcast. We are trying to grow as organically as possible, and this helps other like-minded people who want to empower and encourage others on their journey. So until next time, remember to stand in your truth and know that you are worthy, just as you are. Hey friend, just wanted to take a quick second to remind you that if you or someone you know is struggling and don't know where to turn, the trained volunteers at the LGBT National Hotline are here to help. Because sometimes the strongest thing to do is to ask for help. The National Hotline phone number is 888-843-4564. And if you want to check out the other things that they have available for them to help you with, you can check out the lgbthotline.org in order to be able to see all of the services that they offer in order to help our community.